Good Shabbos, and welcome to this week's edition of Take Home Torah on the parashah Emor. With Emor, we are nearing the end of Leviticus. Just one more week, in fact. And I know there are many of you who are breathing a sigh of relief at this point, really tired of hearing of the minutiae of priestly, temple-based rituals that, for the most part, no longer exist in anywhere near the form that we read in the Torah. But take away the blood and gore of the sacrifices, the squeamishness of skin disease. The core of this book is holiness. Holiness in ritual, with the offerings, the ancient way to connect to a transcendent spirit. Holiness in body, both through using the priests as intermediaries to God and being watchful to maintain holiness in and of our own bodies. And in today's parashah, holiness in time. Starting in Leviticus chapter 23, we get the third of 5 mentions of the festivals in the sacred Jewish calendar that exist in the Torah, that are stated in the Torah. The first 2 mentions are in Exodus, with brief descriptions steeped in the agricultural connections to the harvest, the spring births of livestock. This pays homage to God as creator. In Numbers, we read about the sacrificial offerings, paying homage and bringing acknowledgement to the transcendent spirit, the God of revelation. In Deuteronomy, the festivals pay homage to the God who brought us to the point of being in the land, in a grounded place of belonging, in a central space we share, in a society where none are to be left behind, the God of redemption. This week in Leviticus, as we see the festivals as holiness in time, it's not centered on the people offering sacrifices to God or God guiding the people through the wilderness, but it is a partnership, part of the covenant between the people and God, a covenant of holiness. The scholar and Rabbi Yitz Greenberg, who literally wrote the book on Jewish holidays and festivals, says, the idea that God is not just reaching out to, entering into relationship with humans, but is asking them to become partners in a covenant, that is one of Judaism's revolutionary ideas. And what really floated my boat when I was studying this is that partnership, that covenant, that holy connection is expressed through the merging of the solar and the lunar calendars. That is the hallmark of our Jewish sacred calendar. Chapter 23 starts out, as many paragraphs do, Vaydaber Adonai al Moshe Emor. Adonai spoke to Moses saying, and what did God say? God talked about Moadav, a meeting, a special meeting, a sacred meeting. A Moadei Adonai, a meeting, a fixed time to meet with God. Asher tikra'u otam mikra'e kodesh, that you will proclaim these occasions, these holy occasions. You are the one who are going to proclaim them as holy. So we see the partnership already existing. God will set these times. God will tell us about these fixed times, these sacred meetings. But the people, we are the ones who will proclaim them and keep them. Now, by the calendar of our months, the calendar whose dates are defined by the phases of the moon is a fixed calendar. It's one that works well in the world of humans, with demarcations, easily found, new moon, full moon. We can easily count them. But since the true lunar year is 13 months, if we keep counting simply by that lunar calendar, we'll get out of sync with the agricultural solar calendar that rules the seasons. the agricultural seasons, which help define these holidays. They are imperative to the holiness of the festivals. It is what we share in. The seasons and the harvest they bring, that is the work of God, not humans. And so we create our calendar to hold both the solar and the lunar. The festival dates are set in the lunar time of human, with adjustments made to account for the solar seasons of the earth, of God as creator. And it is in that connection, that collaboration between God and human, that we find the holiness of time. For this covenant that we are partnering in is, as Rabbi Greenberg explains, it is one of Tikkun Olam. Rabbi Greenberg says, the approach of partnership, however, makes clear that God asked people not to switch their attention from this life, but to become more involved in repair of the world, in overcoming the enemies of life, poverty, oppression, war, and sickness. We need to do our part of Tikkun Olam in this world, in Olam Hazeh. That is the path to moving into God's world, Olam Haba, the world to come. And the text makes this clear when, in the midst of these descriptions of the festival and rituals in our parashah this week, we are reminded of a law given earlier in Leviticus, repeated here, almost verbatim. In verse 22, it says that you will reap the harvest of your land. You don't reap all the way to the edges of your field or gather gleanings of your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. Why is this here? The sages asked that question for sure. They said the same thing. Why is this necessary? We already heard this back in chapter 19 of Leviticus. What is the reason this is here? We read one reason in the Keli Yakar, a 16th century Polish commentary. And there it says that the ritual commandments, the one that we do, the concrete commandments like sacrifices, and I'd say the rituals for celebrating the festivals, those are easier to fulfill than the mitzvot that involve engaging with humanity. So while the other teachings about our sacred calendar that are mentioned in the Torah, about these sacred times set aside to honor God of creation with our harvests, God of revelation with our sacrifices, God of redemption as we create sacred space of belonging, this holy partnership in time reminds us to honor and be in partnership with the God of justice. So I wish you a good Shabbos. And I wish for you to go into your week finding different ways to honor all those aspects of God, just as our calendar does. The God of creation, the God of revelation, the God of redemption. And I would say something that may encompass them all, that God of justice. Good Shabbos.